Hi again. So we have a good number of participants today now. So again, good morning, good evening, everybody. As again, my name is Jagsir. I'm going to be your host today. I have a very special guest with us today. Is Chandrashekhar, who is a well-known technopreneur, cybersecurity expert, and then founder, and he's the founder and CEO of SecPod. So today's our today's topic is why reducing risk using vulnerability management, integrated vulnerability management, and patch management is now more critical. Than ever before. Quickly introducing our agenda today, we're going to talk about why attacks continue to occur. Why don't they stop anymore? How do we stop them? Then we're going to talk about attack landscape that we saw pre-COVID and then after COVID, and then we keep on seeing them. Then we're going to talk about importance of integrating vulnerability management, patch management, followed by a quick Q&A session. So please, you can keep posting your questions, and we will attend to your questions at the end, towards the end of the session. So, hi Chandra, welcome.
Hi Jagsir, good morning everyone, and good evening. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this session today. Happy to be part of this exciting session.
Okay, fantastic. So Chandra, what we have done today is instead of going into presentation mode, we wanted to curate some questions that I myself, I'm interested to know the right answers, but I'm sure many people along with me would be definitely, looking forward to your answers to these questions. So I'll quickly go through them one by one and then seek your advice on these. So starting off is, we see these attacks, they keep on occurring. We don't have a stop. They don't stop, right? And then we have too much security, too many tools, and why do they still keep on continuing?
Right, that's a good question, Jagsir. That must be the top question that everyone who is having a responsibility of securing their infrastructure wants an answer. I wish I had a solution which is press the button and everything becomes secure. But let me share my thought on why I believe attacks continue to occur in spite of investing in multiple tools and processes and guidelines and benchmarks and regulations and things like that. It is a well understood fact that attackers always target a weakness in the computer system. So those weaknesses is what attackers go after and exploit those. And it is known to all of us. So you see a weakness, someone will make use of that weakness to launch the attack. And it is also a well-known fact that we must know these risks beforehand and address those well in advance, much before the attacker could exploit those weaknesses. So again, this is no-brainer here. So you have to know your weaknesses, and you have to fix those weaknesses before an attacker could exploit those weaknesses. And so the risk assessment, risk management, and vulnerability assessment products have been there for decades now. And so they were built in an era where it was kind of cool to know a vulnerability, discover a vulnerability without a follow through. It is knowing what problems are there, but without an action that follows to mitigate those problems. So it is as good as not knowing what problems are there. And another kind of a throw off is that there's no accuracy built into this discovered information. So I run a scan for identifying the risks, and there's a good chance that some of those are false positives, and there are also good chances that some of them are not even discovered. So this ineffective approach kind of came to become a standard, and most people did and continue to do a namesake risk assessment and vulnerability assessment exercises without the actions, without the follow through that I was talking about. And also, penetration testing exercises are also being conducted religiously. So I'm not saying that these exercises are futile, and I'm not saying that these are not useful. They help us find the problems, but without fixing those problems that I discover as part of these exercise, kind of meaningless. More or less, they become namesake, and I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. On the other hand, patch management products have also been there for decades now, and they have no visibility to the risks or prioritizing the risks. What is the weakness that I'm trying to fix? I have no idea. So I'm blindly going about and rolling out patches, whatever I feel is important. And I don't know whether I have eliminated the risk that I intended to with these products. So all of these products kind of operated in silo and continue to do so. So multiple point products, disintegrated solutions continue to exist, and they don't talk to each other. Similar to how a well-known kind of a problem that is there in the industry today is the IT security team is kind of disconnected from the IT operations team. So security team believes that I have to discover the vulnerability and the risk or weaknesses. And the operations team have to mitigate those. So there's no conversation between them. There's no integration between them. So that is one of the primary problem, if I have to say. One is performing a risk assessment without a follow through. And the second thing is multiple point products and disintegrated solutions not talking to each other without mitigating those risks. And so these vulnerabilities are being discovered at a very alarming rate these days. And if you look at the database of vulnerabilities, well-known databases, on average, we see anywhere between 50 to 60 new vulnerabilities being added into the database. So these are published and known vulnerabilities, and there are a good number of vulnerabilities that are never published and probably being exploited in the wild by the attackers. So obviously the goal is we want to know about these vulnerabilities, whether they are present in my network that I'm safeguarding or not. But the periodicity of these discovery scans that we do is once in a month or once in a quarter or biannual exercises, more to satisfy the auditing need than security. So that is another big gap that I see. So vulnerabilities are being discovered at a very alarming rate, and then these are not being mitigated well in advance before an attacker could exploit. So if you analyze any of the attacks that are taking place, invariably these vulnerabilities have been there and attacks have been occurring in the wild, but most organizations are not even aware that though they are exposed to that potential threat that is lurking. So when I say vulnerability or a risk, it's not just the applications that I'm using or the operating system that I'm using. I'm talking about the overall risks, potential risks that can be there within the enterprise. Whether I have a weak password or I have unwanted services that are running, or some malicious application is installed somewhere, no visibility into what is there. Maybe I have ineffective firewall policy. All of those are risks that must be understood, known as and when they open up, and must be mitigated, without which attacks continue to occur. So, summarizing, I think the attacks prevail because of these inefficiencies. And one good development that is taking place in the industry, staying optimistic, is that there are models that we can learn from. Security is not something new. I think the industrial ecosystem is forming and going in the right direction, I believe. Over to you, Jagsir.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, since you said that the industry is now evolving and moving towards, a different approach. So, Chandra, I mean, what was the role in your opinion that COVID, I mean, the remote work from home environment that was, I mean, you can say imposed due to COVID. What role where did COVID play in this? In the evolution that industry is going through now?
Yeah, I think humans want to be in control of things in order to feel secure. I think what COVID has done is thrown that sense of control away. So that sense of control that was starting to come into these security administrators who are responsible for managing and securing their environment, I think that control is not being felt anymore because of this one pandemic. And it's kind of an emergency situation. It is not going away in 1 or 2 days, but it's going to stay for months and possibly more than a year. And so the IT administrators and security administrators who are responsible for managing the IT infrastructure, we must definitely empathize with them, because overnight businesses are expecting them to adjust to the new norm. And they have a big task on hand to digest this in the first place, and also bring in technologies that are required to safeguard their interest. So this is a kind of a whole new dimension that is introduced with this change. BYOD was definitely being talked about prior to this, but that was only a small percentage of workforce were using or relying on that. But what has changed now is that a significant percentage of employees are using their personal devices, connecting from wherever they are, using their personal devices to whichever network that they are connected to. They're using the same network to reach to these enterprise perimeter. I think that is the new norm. So most organizations are also invested in on-premise infrastructure, including security, and that approach kind of went for a task now. So we definitely need security to these devices that are connecting from anywhere, from whichever network they are connected to, and the location agnostic way, basically. So we must adopt to the new norm, and it is a challenge. And I think IT security administrators have a big task on their hand.
Okay, understood. So I mean, here is where, I mean, again, I get a question in my head where moving to cloud is not the first thing that comes up, I mean, in an IT admin's or a security admin's head, right? Because what we have seen until now is companies are more comfortable having security tools. I mean, they prefer having security tools within their own premises. Now, is this going to be a concern? I mean, how do companies, how do you suggest leaders as well as the operational teams should overcome these concerns or challenges that they have to, address someday. Because now moving to cloud is, as you said, is not an option, but it has become a mandate after COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when there is a fear of unknown, we don't want to change, and I think those concerns have to be put aside now, because the advantages are kind of outweighing the disadvantage. The only downside to cloud adoption was the biggest concern was security. And I, at this point in time, strongly believe that those are being overcome with number of measures that are being implemented, from technology advancements to guidelines and benchmarks to regulations. I think all of these are coming together, and a sort of an ecosystem is being built around cloud, and it's important. So with this, the current reality, I think it definitely makes sense to start looking at adopting to the new norm.
Okay, perfect. Agree with you that someday we have to move to cloud. So it's becomes important to understand why cloud, and then how can other things can coexist with your security being on cloud, right? So thanks for that, Chandra. So, and then a follow-up question is, then what do these companies do who were never comfortable of cloud? I have heard this question a lot of times, that we don't even want to consider cloud. So would you suggest them to rethink their strategy, or and how do they address it?
Yeah, I think definitely time to rethink the strategy. I'm sure most of them are looking at and overcoming that fear that I was talking about. And as I also said, the lot of experiments are going on on the trust side and the security side of it as well, with a lot of continuous monitoring capabilities coming in, uh, benchmarks and guidelines coming in. So I have personally gone through some of these. Uh, Benchmarks and guidelines are really well written, and at the same time, the regulations are coming in as well. So holding someone responsible uh, for doing something or not doing something. I think as I said, the ecosystem is being built, and I'm sure most IT administrators will be looking at that.
Okay.
To overcome the fear now.
Okay, fantastic. So at this point, I have, a question for the audience as well. Let me just so it's a poll that we want to conduct and seek answers from the audience as well, so that we can see how do we take this forward from here. So we'll take 10 seconds. Okay, so 5 more seconds and then we are done. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So coming to my next question for you, Chandra, is how do you suggest that automation should, what role should automation play in all of this, and why are we still not able to automate security? Is what kind of challenges do you get to hear from customers, and then what are your suggestions for us?
Yeah, I think automation is more of, I don't think there is any resistance to that. It is more of technology availability than the need for it. So I think this need was always there, and this need is, of course, where the technology comes in order to help us, in order to automate significant amount of workload that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I don't see that there was a resistance, but I think the tools ecosystem was not in place for the adoption of automation to bring in security. I strongly feel that the cloud side, there are a number of continuous monitoring, continuous security, DevOps and DevSecOps, all of those things are coming in to automate significant portion of those security checks that were being manually looked into. And a lot of tools are being built in that direction as well. So even on the enterprise side, the same amount of innovation is coming in. So there are tools for continuous monitoring, continuous compliance posture assessment, and also continuous detection and response. And I think that is the only way that any organization can secure themselves from the onslaught of attacks. So without which I doubt there is an alternative way of dealing with security now. So it's extremely critical to invest in tools that provides us continuous visibility and helps us achieve the compliance posture that we would want to, and also continuously monitor, detect threats, and also respond to those threats in a timely manner. I think that is coming in. Integrated risk management with mitigation. So the approach is basically see a problem, fix it, and automate it, and make it into a continuous process. So I believe that is the only way to security.
Okay, perfect. Since you talked about threats and attacks, Chandra, I'm sure. I mean, everybody knows that 2020 has been an year. I mean, has been a happening year, not only because of the human virus, but a lot of digital attacks and cyber attacks and threats as well. So what we have done for you is we have created a landscape of all the attacks that has happened this year, and would like to get your expert opinion on what were these attacks, and then how did they impact the whole, not only the primary the primary companies that were under attack, but also the others in the ecosystem. Before going there, we have another question for the audience here. So we'll quickly launch it, and then we'll move into the landscape of attacks. Okay, 5 more seconds. I see a lot of okay. Okay, great. So what we understand from the audience is everybody is aware about of what kind of tools do they want to use, and then I'll share that with you, Chandra, also, so that we can get your thoughts on that. So before going there, let me share with you one. Okay, so this is what we have seen this year. I mean, there were a lot. I mean, there were most of these attacks we talked about, and then we also got to see a stick on companies, big companies, large companies who not complying to certain standards, and so what do you think? I mean, about these attacks? Could we have prevented these? And then what should we do so that we are unaffected by these in the coming future?
Mhm. Yeah, I think what you captured here is probably the high-profile vulnerabilities that are widely being exploited, and also some of the fine that some of the large companies having to pay with for not meeting the regulatory compliance requirement. So if you look at some of these vulnerabilities, for example, zero login, that is a vulnerability in Microsoft domain controller. So there's a ransomware that is utilizing this particular vulnerability at this point in time, Raiku, and exploiting those weaknesses in the domain system. And Microsoft also came up with multiple alerts on this. They remediated the vulnerability as well, and they still believe that significant number of systems that are exposed on the internet are not being not addressing the vulnerability as yet. I think that has been the trend as far as these vulnerabilities, high-profile vulnerabilities are concerned. And Microsoft Exchange is another vulnerability that is being exploited in the wild. SharePoint is another, which was also ransomware target. So likewise, there are a number of these vulnerabilities. I mean, these are some of the high-profile vulnerabilities that have been exploited so far in this year. So there is a vulnerability in the UEFI bootkit. So attackers are also looking at mechanisms to stay kind of stealthily and not being detected. So utilize the vulnerabilities at the BIOS level. Likewise, there are the VPN softwares are being exploited for obvious reason now, because most users are connecting over the VPN. The conference software like the TeamViewer and Zoom, another example that were being exploited in the wild. And some of these enterprise products like the Citrix NetScaler product was also being exploited. So what it goes on to show is that there are a large number of vulnerabilities that are exploitable either by ransomware or other type of malware. And it definitely makes sense to identify these vulnerability, and the message that is coming in from these statistics is that it makes sense to know these vulnerabilities and timely mitigate these vulnerabilities in order to not be exploited. And if you look at some of those regulatory specific violations and the fines that these organizations have to pay to not meet a particular goal, is also pretty hefty, depending on the criteria. I mean, what you don't do, which you're expected to do. I think all of these are going on to show that it is extremely important to maintain a hygiene posture for our organization. Anybody who is trying to secure their environment and stay alert as far as these vulnerabilities are concerned, and also go about fixing these vulnerabilities in a timely fashion and not wait for 5 months or 3 months to mitigate these vulnerabilities. Because before that, an attacker could easily exploit these systems that are exposed to the internet and cost you hefty amount of dollar.
Okay. So when we see these numbers, I mean, these are big numbers, and as you rightly said, right? I mean, these are big corporations. Now, do you suggest that smaller companies should not undermine these statistics, or what is happening in the ecosystem? the cyber ecosystem, how should they take this? How should they consider this while they are orchestrating their cybersecurity practices?
Yeah, I don't think there is any difference exist anymore. The smaller organizations are not attacked. So I think that kind of notion does not exist. I think the stats that you have captured here are probably revealing that only the large organizations are being fined. But if you actually look at GDPR violation list, there are smaller organizations that are also being fined, and large number of attacks are also targeting the SME segment. So nobody is foolproof at this point in time. I think everybody who have weaknesses will be targeted. Everybody who have an exposure will be attacked. So I think that distinction shouldn't be there anymore. Even attackers are vertical agnostic. We used to believe only the financial sector are the primary target, but I don't think that exists anymore. I think the across verticals, from manufacturing to healthcare to IT, ITS, government institutes, I think most of them are being targeted. So the notion of vertical specific attacks or the size of the organization does not exist as far as the attackers are concerned.
Okay, fantastic. The good news, I mean, we all know there's always a good news, right, after this. And then the good news for us is we are looking for a solution, right? I mean, not that we have the perfect solution, but we are on that pursuit. And that is where I would like to quickly introduce the third topic on our agenda, that is, why should we integrate vulnerability and patch management within the organization. Now, Chandra, at this point, we the poll that we conducted, we've seen more than 50% of the audience, they already use an integrated solution for their vulnerability and patch management. Now, now is that a surprising statistic to you, or what are your thoughts there?
I don't think that is a surprising statistic at all. And I think it is very much a need. And I think people have understood that need and adopting to that particular need or addressing that particular need at this point in time. So I would have expected definitely more than 50%. But I think the trend is going there. So that's a good news.
Perfect. So, and I know, I mean, interacting with you, I know your philosophy, I mean, which also is the DNA of the product and the Sooner Now platform, right? Could you tell us a little bit about how did you come up with this thought of building an integrated platform?
Yeah, so if you, as part of your first question, I think I answered that ineffective mechanism of dealing with security. So if I see a problem, if I don't fix a problem, it is as good as not seeing a problem because the effectiveness is not there anymore. So the tools that were built with this agenda of only finding the problem are not effective in my view. And the tools that are built with the agenda of giving more work to the IT security administrators or IT administrators who are already burdened with enormous amount of tasks on their hand in sustaining their business and improving their business. So that also does not make sense to me. So the solution has to be automation. Solution has to tell me all my critical problems, and it also has to tell me this is how you fix it, and it should help me fix it. So unless I see that that effectiveness is coming in, I don't think we have addressed security in the right way. So that is the philosophy, as you said, with which our products are built with. So we don't want to talk about a problem and not providing the solution to that particular problem. So if there is a problem that is identified, there has to be a fix that is associated with that particular problem, and I want to ultimately eliminate it. And at the same time, can we significantly automate these methods or these manual activities in order to save time for the IT administrators? I think that is where our product plays a significant role of making it a continuous automated risk management or a cyber hygiene posture management to prevent the attacks from occurring.
Okay. So talking about the problem, Chandra, what having a vulnerability management software or a patch management software, I mean, it's well understood, but why integration? I mean, why these two tools or technologies have to be integrated? What is the impact uh, that I mean is imposed on the organizational security if they are not integrated?
Yeah, so the problem of operating in silo is definitely the security effectiveness is not coming in, so you don't talk to each other. So one product is talking about a problem and the other product without understanding what the problem is, offering a solution. So that kind of explains the whole scenario. So it's not going to be effective at all. So integration that way, I think it is very, very essential. And concept of bringing in multiple use cases into a single platform, I think is already catching up, something that we introduced way back. And vendors are also realizing that. And there are a significant number of problems otherwise also for IT managers. I mean, people have agents for every single use case, and more or less the systems are the CPU cycles of the systems are being occupied by these n number of agents that are installed in every system. And so without integration, without eliminating these need for multiple point products, I don't think it is sustainable anymore. So it is extremely important to integrate. It's extremely important to make each of these products talk to each other and really understand what the problem is, and also offer an integrated solution so where I can eliminate that particular problem within the same console. And if I don't have that, I don't think the security effectiveness is realized anymore without that.
Okay, perfect. So I think the next slide, what we have here is summarizes the answer to, I mean, why we need this, right? I mean, preventing attacks, data breaches to achieve peace of mind, and not to worry where employees are. I think having an integrated solution there serves the purpose. Chanda, now I have a request for you. Is can you show us how do we execute this in reality?
Yeah, I can definitely take us through a quick demo of our product and what we have built. But let me talk about some of the use cases before getting into the demo part. So we're talking about integration, which is one, identifying the problem and also having the ability to fix the problem. And the other side of it is, can it be a continuous automated process? I think both of these are extremely important. Why it has to be continuous, as I explained, the attackers are targeting the vulnerabilities which are being discovered on a day-to-day basis. New attacks are coming in almost high-profile attacks are taking place or occurring almost every day. So it is risk posture evaluation has to be a daily process. It has to be a automated daily discovery of vulnerabilities and misconfigurations that are there within the environment. And without continuous risk assessment, I'll never know what weaknesses I have and what I'm up against. So that is where the automation comes in to perform a risk posture evaluation of my network every day. And with automated mitigation also integrated to it, so I'll be able to go ahead and say, can I fix this and can I bring back the system to a sane state? IT environment is of course changing every day. So you strengthened your system yesterday and someone wanted to install something and then they went ahead and opened up a protocol that is not supposed to be opened up. So things like this keep happening. It's important to identify, assess these risks that are opening up on a day-to-day basis, and also have the ability to bring back the system back into a sane state. Can I apply patches? Can I apply these remediation measures every day without hassle? I think that is another need. So the third need is also being able to show this continuous compliance posture, maybe to your management, maybe to derive kind of assurance that our network is safe. So that is also a very important need. So with that, let me do a quick demo of the product. I will share my screen in a moment. I guess you have to make me the presenter, Jagsir.
I'll do that.
This is our dashboard. Quickly go to one of the accounts. So we have a SaaS-based solution. So this is for endpoint security management, and it is say that now as a platform is bringing together multiple use cases into one single console. We have 6 different tools that are all coming together on to Sena Now platform, starting from vulnerability management, where you run a scan every day to discover the vulnerabilities. So it only takes about 5 minutes to complete the vulnerability scanning across the enterprise, irrespective of the number of devices that are there. And then we have an integrated patch management capability that allows someone to fix or mitigate those vulnerabilities. So a large percentage of these vulnerabilities can be fixed by rolling out the security patches. So we have a patch management tool coming together. And we have an asset management to give continuous visibility to the IT environment and identify any violations of any sort. Then there is a compliance management tool, primarily from system hardening perspective. So I was talking about a need where an outdated protocol is enabled by someone and that needs to be assessed continuously. And any deviations must be fixed. So compliance management tool helps that address that particular need. Then we have a threat detection and response capability for continuous monitoring and then figuring out if there is any potential threat and respond to those. And there is also an endpoint management tool that gives further visibility to the endpoint security controls. And also with built-in actions, you can fix any deviations like an open port or an unwanted entry in the registry, or even uninstalling a particular software that is not supposed to be there within the environment. So all of these 6 tools are being addressed by one single agent, and and accounts can be provisioned with multiples of these tools. And with every day's scan, 5 to 10 minutes scan, all of these use cases are addressed. So let me focus on a few, especially with the integrated vulnerability management and patch management as a concept that we are discussing today. So with vulnerability management, agents are running an automated scan, so there is no need for someone to run these periodic scans that most people are used to. So it is running a scan, 5 to 10 minutes, vulnerabilities are discovered across the enterprise, total number of vulnerabilities and how many vulnerabilities are being exploited, what devices are under a large number of vulnerabilities, which applications are having these vulnerabilities, etc. So this discovery is being made every day. So you displayed a slide where the SharePoint and Exchange, Citrix and TeamViewer and all of those vulnerability, every one of those will be discovered, part of the daily scan that we do. And then an integrated patch management helps roll out those patches that are essential to fix these vulnerabilities. So these many vulnerability can be mitigated by rolling out 172 patches on these systems that are having vulnerability. So if you expand these, you will see all those patches that must be fixed and the total count that will be reduced by rolling out the patches. So it is extremely intuitive and easy to use solution as well. So you have the visibility to the risks that are being eliminated by applying these patch. You can also do search and figure out if there is SharePoint application that is vulnerable, for example, and quickly roll out the patch. Essentially getting this closer to 100%. So that should be the goal of every organization. So in order to fix these vulnerability, you would go to missing patches, select those patches that you want to apply and create a job. So specify and say, this is when I want to apply the patch. That particular patch will be rolled out. And as part of the rollout, it will do a scan and figure out if those vulnerabilities are actually remediated or not. So essentially, we are getting instant visibility into those vulnerabilities that are mitigated by rolling out the patches, and this graph would continues to move towards the 100% posture compliance. So invariably, when we deploy our product within the environment, as we onboard customers, it ends up discovering large number of vulnerability in 1,000 system organization, for example, where we did a recent deployment, ended up discovering close to 1 million vulnerability. And with the integrated capability, we were able to reduce that vulnerability count significantly to 100, under 100K vulnerabilities within a week. And from there on, you could establish an automation process to fix these vulnerabilities on a scheduled basis. So you can set up an automation rule by saying, these are the applications that I want to automatically fix on a weekly schedule or a daily schedule, and go on creating a rule. And without any intervention, it would go ahead and fix those vulnerabilities that are discovered. So we do have coverage for Windows, Linux, and Mac, and a large percentage of third-party applications that are there within every enterprise. So with this unified approach of not having to shift between multiple consoles, one for Windows, another for CentOS, another for Red Hat, so all those hassles most organizations put up with, and that is kind of eliminated with this integrated console. So all of Microsoft patches, third-party application patches, Linux and Mac patches can be rolled out from the same console. And it also has capabilities to fix certain misconfigurations that could be there within the environment, where, let's say, an example of SSH v2 is not supposed to be enabled anymore, or TLS 1.0 is again weak protocol. So, or a password policy is not in line with my organization's expectations. An account lockout policy may not be in line with my expectations. So, each operating system we assess thousands of certain checks to identify the deviations, and if there are deviations, you can come and mitigate those deviations as well. So these are some of those potential misconfigurations that could be exploited by the attackers to do the lateral movement, especially from the attacker's perspective. So we do have coverage again from Windows, Linux, and Mac, so those systems can be hardened. We do track firmware related. I was talking about the hardware drivers being exploited as well. And there is also a rollback capability built into the product. So with this integrated approach of being able to run a scan every day and being able to roll out the security patches either through automation or by creating a patching job, we would be able to achieve the compliance posture that is essential for organizations today, without which prevention of the attacks become extremely challenging. So there are a number of other use cases that are also being addressed going beyond vulnerability management and patch management alone. Because as I said, the risk is not just the vulnerability that is there in the application and operating system. It could also be an unwanted process that is running, an unwanted port that is open, or invalid entry that is present in the registry. So a number of such or even security controls like the antivirus is not installed or not up to date, not running. So all of those are potential risks that must be mitigated. So our product actually goes beyond the vulnerability and patch management alone, from system hardening to monitoring other security controls and taking actions to eliminate those risks and automate the elimination as well. So essentially, in a holistic way, we are looking at cyber hygiene and how to achieve a security posture that is essential to prevent large percentage of the attacks, and with prevention as the primary goal of the platform. And of course, there are reports that are off the shelf available, or you could build your own report to achieve compliance to a particular guideline. So the NIST CSF, for example, or CAS controls on NIST 853. Any of these benchmarks, it would look looking to achieve compliance to, we have covered most of those security controls part of these platform itself. So we should be able to generate those reports, which is compliant to those guidelines as well. Over to you, Jagsir.
Okay, so at this point, Chandra, we have few questions regarding vulnerability management. Is it applicable for the entire network or endpoint only?
Yeah, from the vulnerability management point of view, we are looking at endpoints. The primary focus of our product is the endpoints. When I say endpoints, it is the desktop, laptops, and the servers that are there within the enterprise environment. So that's our current focus. But having said that, we are also looking at network assessment that is coming in by early next year as well.
Okay, perfect. So to the audience, if we have any more questions, we have Chandra to help us with those. So we have another question, Chandra. How do we compare with Tenable?
Yeah, that's a good question. From Tenable is a vulnerability management product, well known, been there for more than 2 decades now. So we do compare fairly well, definitely in terms of the detection of the vulnerabilities. So we have been building a repository of security checks since 2009. So, and we've also been licensing this to other security vendors who use our repository of these security checks. So that way we have built a very largest repository of security checks in the world. So our detection capability is very accurate and also goes the length and breadth that is required as far as the coverage is concerned. And the another difference that I would want to highlight is the integrated capability of mitigating these vulnerabilities within the same console, which is not there in most of the standard vulnerability management products. So our approach to security, as I talked, is being able to identify the vulnerabilities as a continuous process, at the same time being able to mitigate those vulnerabilities again in integrated patch management and other security controls that we have within the environment. So that is where we go that extra step beyond Tenable or Rapid7 or other vulnerability scanners that are out there.
Okay, perfect. So any plans to integrate disk file encryption management?
Yeah, so we called it as a platform, Saner now. So we already have 6 different tools coming together onto a single console. So the journey is, of course, continuing that and introduce newer tools as far as cyber hygiene requirement is concerned. So encryption management is definitely one of the need there. So that is one thing that is there in the roadmap. File integrity monitoring, for example, is another tool that we are working on. So we would be coming up with these new capabilities, part of the roadmap that we have for the platform.
Okay. Another question for us, Chandra. Does Saner Now product has a live feed of vulnerabilities?
Yes, which is basically what I was talking about, the SCAP feed that is being updated every day. So, and we have built the largest repository of security checks that are expressed in SCAP format. So, which is being updated by us every day. So, any new vulnerability that is discovered today, we will have the security check covered within the same day, and the scanners would go about identifying those vulnerabilities again in a timely fashion and then roll out the mitigations again as part of the daily updates that we push to our platform.
Okay, I think we can now say it. So if we have any more questions? Okay, one more question. So let's take one more question, and then we can wrap this Q&A session. And everybody, for any queries, you can write us a note at info@secpod.com, and our team will get in touch with you to answer your query. So last question for you, Chandra, here is: Windows machines are vulnerable till Microsoft releases a patch. So how to mitigate those vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so any vulnerability, of course, patch is the best way of rolling out or rather eliminating that particular vulnerability. And Microsoft has a famous Patch Tuesday every month. But in the meantime, if a vulnerability is widely known and patch has not been released, and that is a situation that we must deal with. So typically, there will always be some sort of a workaround available till an effective patch is released by Microsoft. So, which is also why I was explaining about other security controls that can be applied within the same platform, going beyond the patching alone. So a good number of these vulnerabilities where the patch is not available, there are multiple workarounds that can be rolled out. There are options to make changes to the environment, whether you want to stop that particular service temporarily or change the exposure for that particular device for the moment. So there are ways that we can deal with those vulnerabilities till a regular patch can be applied.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that, Chandra. And again, to everybody, if you have any more questions, you can drop us a quick note at info@secpod.com, and our team will get in touch with you to answer those queries. One last thing for you, Chandra, if you can sum it up for us in the audience, in why should we consider an integrated approach to risk reduction in this post-COVID, or I mean the remote work from home scenario.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, so the COVID has brought in a new dimension or a new attack vector, and it's extremely important to secure those devices that are getting connected into the enterprise network, doing the sensitive things or are operating on the sensitive environment of the organization. So it is important to build the automation capability, continuous compliance posture capability, and also identify these risks on a day-to-day basis and respond to those risks that are identified in a timely fashion before an attacker could exploit that. And there is no alternative approach then. I mean, if there is a known weakness, if you're not mitigating those weaknesses, attackers are definitely going to exploit those weaknesses that are there and launch attack, or use that as an entry point into the organization's asset, and then spread this attack from one system to another system till they reach what they're looking for. So the best form of security is having that sense of assurance. That sense of assurance comes only when I know that I have eliminated all my weaknesses. And Saner now as a platform is built with that, built for that purpose.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Chandra, and I thank our audience for giving us their valuable time, and then hoping that we keep on doing these sessions more often, and we welcome your feedback on this session, as well as what would you like to hear from us in upcoming sessions. And putting an end to this, we have a free version of Saner Now, a free trial of Saner Now platform. If you're interested, you can go and download, configure the trial on up to 10 devices, and see for yourself how it can help you reduce stress, not only during COVID remote work environment, but also post COVID. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you, everyone, for patient hearing and being with us today.